let's move on and talk about fatal mistake number 6, the brutal productivity truth. For every pound that you spend, are you getting the understanding what the multiplier return is? You've alluded to this, but it's so critical, isn't it, in your growth agenda, that you're brutal, that you are absolutely crystal clear, being commercially savvy about every investment decision you make, that you've got a model of what are the assumptions about your return on investment that you're making.
I'll remind you to tell the Premier Bank story at this stage because you asked me to. But the reality is, I mean, lots of organisations that say they recruit new staff, and it can be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 pound on cost. And I sit there and say, as a result of spending that, what difference will that person make to your business? Will it generate more revenue? Will it have an impact on your cost base in terms of, will they be able to save you money somewhere else? Will they be able to give you a system or a process that actually will then save you some money? Will they train somebody to get 10% growth? And if you've got 10 in your team and you get 10% growth at £10,000 each, and I'm only paying somebody 60, the good news is I can measure my return on investment. So I remember being in a business and I said, I'm not bringing any more people in. I'm just going to be obsessed with taking the work away, because automation was a really smart approach to taking work away from people. And as a result of that, it meant my people had capacity to build better relationships with customers. And as a result of that, the better relationships and better conversations resulted in better product sales. So by automating dull work and work which is labor intensive and has a propensity to go wrong, because automation can solve a lot of that for you. If that creates capacity for great relationships and conversations, then you should be able to measure how many new accounts it will bring, how many retention. So imagine your retention rate goes from 92 to 98%. And actually, if every 1% of your business that you keep was worth £10,000, if you retain 92 to 98, suddenly that's £60,000. If I'd employed somebody or invested in a system that cost me 30, I can measure that. And it goes back to, what are the key metrics in your business? I'm a fan of the balanced business scorecard. What financial measures do I need? What people measures in terms of how my people staying, people going? What about my clients? How many am I keeping? How many am I acquiring? How many am I increasing the share of wallet? And then what's the internal quality like? The risk and the systems and the processes. So I'm always looking at a series of measures. When we sit as a board, we understand what are the key measures for our business. And as a result of that, we red, amber, green them. Reds, we have a chat about how we're getting it better. Amber, we look to see how we can get it green. And green, we ask, why is it green? And what can we learn to make sure that other parts of the business can become even more successful in that particular part of the balanced business scorecard quadrant.
Yeah, and this is fascinating because I had a client, and it absolutely backs up what you're talking about here, that when they were in growth mode, or when they are in growth mode, the natural default when their teams come to them and say, we're busy, is to go, oh, let's get more people. That is the instant default mode. And all that happens is they're growing the top revenue line, but also what's increasing proportionally is the cost base because they're bringing in more people. So what we did was we created this little model that we went, right, how do we process engineer? What can we automate, and how do we enable technology? And with AI now, it's even more opportunity to do that. What do we automate? What can we outsource so that we don't need to increase our fixed cost base? And then the last question became, what do we need to insource, i.e., do we need to bring people in to do it? But that was the decision-making hierarchy. That became the last port of call as opposed to the first one. And so many businesses fall into that trap, and you can't do that today. Automation, technology enablement, process engineering. There are smarter ways about how you grow your business, and then having your fixed cost base under control, and then having variable taps that you can turn on and off where you outsource. But in our business, we've got 2 videographers in India. My EA now is in South Africa. And, you get such talented people who are a fraction of the price of what it costs in the UK. So you've got to be smart in how you're thinking about managing your fixed costs, your variable costs, and how you really leverage productivity. Because as you quite rightly pointed out, we are behind the curve in really being productive and our cost to serve and how we deliver what we deliver as businesses.
But the example there, Royston, is what if you employ somebody in your business for 35 hours a week? Yeah, they only have the the work of 23 hours. Therefore, you're losing 12 hours because there's no work for them to do. Whereas if you outsource that on a per hour basis, you're only
Yeah.
paying for 23 hours work. Therefore, you're saving 12 hours work. Therefore, you're saving more money.
Yeah.
So, and the only thing I'd add to what you just said is occasionally just ask, what should we just stop doing?
Yeah, brilliant. No, you're spot on.
Stop doing it. Stop
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
It's a service that nobody wants anymore. So let's just stop doing it.
And the example I talked about, and thank you for reminding me, the productivity one was one of the banks that I work with. This is going back 10 years ago now. They had premier banking relationship managers, 500 of them, working on the road out there with customers. Going back to your point, which has been a thread throughout this session that you've absolutely kept coming back to, is they went and surveyed their customers and they said to the customers, do you value your annual review with your relationship manager? Tick, yes, we do. The response was really high. In terms of how that annual review is delivered, do you prefer face to face, or are you happy for it to be online or via technology, i.e., Teams or Zoom? 80% of customers said we don't mind whether it's online and through technology versus the face to face. And yet they had a field based team of 500 relationship managers who, on average, could probably do 1.5 reviews a day with the travel that they were doing. Suddenly, they took out 300 field based relationship managers, reduced their workforce by 150, and had 150 desk based relationship managers. And suddenly, they could do 4 reviews a day and still deliver the service experience and the quality for their customers. But what was the saving in their productivity and cost to serve? Off the scale.
Yeah, no, there's three revolutions going on in the world, Royston. There's a technology revolution, consumer stroke customer revolution, and a world order revolution. And too many people do not understand that the future is very different from their old business model. You know, I was reading an article on Kodak last night. Kodak used to own the end-to-end process, right? And suddenly, digital photography comes along. Kodak don't respond. That there is one blockbuster left in the world. It's the Blockbuster Museum. There used to be 16,000. And then Netflix came along, right, with a subscription model that says, maybe I don't want to travel and pick up a video. If you want to beam it into my house, I will pay you a monthly fee. And I think there's 470 million Netflix customers paying 20 quid a month. That's not a bad business model because it's technology and consumer. We used to have travel agents on the high street. I don't want a travel agent. I can use technology to get a really good idea of the holiday I want to go into. I don't need to go and get a paper brochure anymore. So I think looking into the future as well about what are the future trends, and there's some really cool futurists that will send you a weekly e-zine just to tell you what some of the technology trends are, the consumer trends, and actually some of the world order changes in policy, for example. So all the time it's about looking into the future.
And I remember one of your quotes that I still use. Great leaders have got the ability to look around corners. You talk about that all the time. And if you don't like change, you like your relevance even less, which I think is a great summary of what you've just talked about. Yeah, you've got to be constantly in a state of change readiness where you are curious, you are inquisitive, and you're challenging what you do to future proof yourself for tomorrow. And that, links really well that fatal mistake 6.
The world isn't going to slow down because you don't want it to go fast, right? So my old mentor used to say to me, when the pace of change outside your business is faster than inside your business, then disaster is imminent.